It's that time of the week again. The newest episode of the HBO Original Series, 30 Coins, is out. So let's talk about episode 4, Recuerdos, or Memories. Just a heads up that this will contain some spoilers for the first 3 episodes that have already aired. To recap what's happened in the previous episodes, the premise of the show is that Judas betrayed Jesus for 30 silver coins. And to now possess these coins will give the owner the ultimate weapon, which is believed to be more powerful than the Ark of the Covenant. So of course, people want this weapon and are searching the globe for the coins. A priest, Father Vergara, is exiled to a small Spanish town after a failed exorcism leads to a young man's death. During this exorcism, one of Judas's coins comes out of the boy's arm, and Vergara grabs it and then hides it. In the first episode, the story begins with a robbery where a man brutally shoots a ton of people. In the process, he is also shot numerous times, but he continues unfazed. We learn his goal was to retrieve one of the coins from a safety deposit box. He wears another coin around his neck, which is what we assume gives him the temporary invincibility. In the town where Vergara is exiled, a baby is born to an animal, but looks like a human. The baby then grows at an incredible rate, and the woman taking care of it becomes wildly obsessed with the child because she had lost her kid years earlier. The child then takes on a spider-like monster form, ultimately looking for the coin and causing some serious damage. Paco, the town mayor, along with the town veterinarian Elena, team up and get the priest involved to help solve the madness that is going on. But the priest, for some selfish reasons, downplays the events and rationalizes them, causing a rift between him and Elena. In the second episode, a group of young adults plays with a Ouija, causing one person to just disappear. Weirdness begins happening, and a young woman can see when people will die. Elena is once again pulled into this mystery because of her relationship with the young girl with the visions. In this episode, we are now beginning to see the search for the coins, too. Shadowy forces or spirits that look like religious figures are looking for and influencing others to seek out the coin and retrieve it from Vergara. Elena still has the coin in her possession, and she hides it, but she's also understandably shaken by the visions that she sees and what she has experienced as the shadowy forces appear. In episode 3, the show starts off in New York with a brutal scene of a man stealing one of the coins from a jewelry store. Then the story transitions to the town where a couple has a mirror in their house that reflects some odd imagery. Things that are visible in the mirror, but they're not in reality. Paco and Elena go to the house and then decide to involve Vergara because it's just weird, and because of the book that is visible in the mirror. It's the Gospel according to Judas, part of the Apocrypha. Vergara decides to sit in front of the mirror to observe anything odd, and man, does some oddness occur. Vergara's reflection moves on its own, and then in a crazy move has the body, or maybe the decaying soul, of the man who died in the exorcism pull Vergara through the mirror, and the priest's reflection then walks into our world, effectively switching places. The reflected priest then stirs the townfolk into a frenzy. They're mindlessly doing his bidding, which is looking for the coin. At the same time, Elena and Paco see some of the weirdness and break the mirror and step into what I can only describe as an alternate dimension, or maybe it's a portal. And they walk through the rooms, and when they do that, there are mirrors that they can look through almost like windows. They find Vergara being held captive by a room full of religious uppity-ups who also want the coin. Paco and Elena end up rescuing Vergara and returning to our world, and find that the town has just destroyed Elena's clinic looking for that coin, which Elena had all along. Later that night, she then throws it off this huge dam in an effort to hide it from everyone, including herself. So that whirlwind recap brings us to episode 4, Recuerdos, or Memories. Up until this episode, Vergara has been a real mystery. We have gotten small glimpses into his past, but not too much info on him. Why is he so jaded? Why does he function differently than how we'd assume regular priests would act? Episode 4 is Vergara's episode. We flash back 30 years to see him at seminary. Here we see him with 2 of his best friends, and I love that we get to see the skepticism and discourse that happens between the 3. Their conversations have a realness to them. It's friends that come from a common grounding, but then have differing views on how things play out, but retain the freedom to disagree with each other, and they're discussing topics for deeper understanding. Through these flashbacks, we get to see how their views also diverge, but also seem parallel in certain aspects. There is a scene that changes the trajectory of their friendship, and there's some very powerful dialogue that helps to build the lore of the entire show. Because a large portion of this episode is flashback, we're seeing a younger Vergara, and it's odd to see him with hair and without a beard. I mean, talk about a transformation. But his older version is much more powerful looking. I mean, some of it's because of just hardening through life, but that shaved head and that long beard, they don't hurt either. There is a real mystery building, and not that it hasn't been building before, but now the story is stepping on the gas, and it's upping the intensity and the urgency. They're diving more into the main focus of the title of the show. The pursuit of the coins are now becoming the center of the narrative. There is so much religious lore being built up. I mean, yeah, the entire show is building this, kind of like a Dan Brown novel, but this episode delved more into it and began to put some characters behind the mystique. I like that the story takes something that is not necessarily widely known and incorporates it into more widely known information to weave together a story that has a lot of twists and rides that line of plausibility. And like I've said before, I don't watch this show as a study in theology, but rather as an adventure story with some building mystery and very flawed characters. Now, even though this episode is mainly focused on Vergara, there is still some story time that is devoted to Elena and Paco and the town. We're still seeing the tensions grow between Paco and his wife and between Paco and Elena. The events in episode 3 are kind of that breaking point for Elena, and it's frustratingly engaging to see how the townspeople react to her now in light of their own behavior. There are still some pieces of the story that aren't too well defined, but I'm holding out hope that as each episode continues, more of these answers are going to come. I mean, we have quick lines of dialogue that give clues to future events, some of which are revealed rather quickly, and when those happen, it's pretty obvious what is about to happen, but the explanation for it still remains a mystery. To me, as each episode continues, we see Paco becoming less and less confident. He's becoming more stammering and wavering, which creates sort of a personal power vacuum. He didn't start off as a wholly confident and commanding persona, but what he did have is being eaten away, and it's becoming pretty obvious that he is not in control as much as he'd like to believe that he is. The growing drama with Elena is interesting, and new complications arise between her, Paco, and Roque to make their relationship even more engaging. This episode didn't rely too much on special effects, which have had varying levels of quality throughout the episodes. Mainly this one used character movements and camera angles to create a lot of the mystery. There was one scene though where special effects do play a prominent role, and like the previous episodes, they're done at night where the darkness can hide some of those imperfections. But the show also employs some really good practical effects and makeup to create some odd imagery. I'm still finding the pace of this to be efficient but not rushed, and I don't ever feel bored or like the story is dragging. If anything, there are some parts where I wish we'd see what was going on with the other characters, but I also have to consider what the crux of the episode is. And in this one, the focus really is on Vergara. So if it hadn't devoted most of the screen time to him, it would have felt incomplete and would have been very frustrating. I find myself being sucked into the story more and more each week. I'm still not totally sure where this is ultimately headed, but as each episode continues, we're given more answers. But thankfully, more questions are raised, and even though they're somewhat predictable, the cliffhangers, they're effective too. There's no sex or nudity, lots of profanity, and some violence. I give episode 4 of 30 coins 4 out of 5 couches. How are you liking this series so far? What have been some of your favorite moments from the first 4 episodes? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.